Welcome to the Fishing Oregon Coast podcast. Meet the fishing pros, hear stories, get advice, and get the latest info on all the newest gear. Now your host, Gary Palmer.
This is Gary Palmer with Fishing Oregon Coast podcast, and I'm excited today to be here with Mark Fleck at Englund Marine in Charleston. So today, Mark's going to talk to us about different poles, reels, and tackle that he sells to customers that come in here to fish in this area, and we're going to talk about it by different fish. So, Mark, can you take a minute first, though, and tell our audience a little about yourself and the store here, the Englund company.
Well, the Englund Marine Company was started and founded in 1944, actually by my grandfather, and it's kind of a been a family business the whole time. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So, and how many stores are there?
Okay, so we have 7 stores along the coast. We have Westport, Washington, Ilwaco, our main hubs in Astoria, Oregon. We have Newport, Charleston here, and then of course Crescent City, California, and Eureka.
Okay, and also you have, I think, a raft.
Yeah, actually we have a raft repacking facility that handles safety equipment. They do the rafts for the commercial fleet, and then also survival suits and EPIRBs and that sort of thing. And that's basically another full-time entity for us. Yeah.
Where is that located?
That's in Warrenton, Oregon.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Yep. And tell us about yourself then. Where did you grow up and what?
I grew up just inland from here in Coquille, and this was a summer job.
Awesome.
Yeah, started when I was 15. So anyway, it became a full-time job when I dropped out of school. I was going to the local community college, and I never really planned on this being my career, but I'm glad.
Awesome.
It's great.
We're glad too. Yeah, we're glad you're here.
It's been a lot of fun.
So today, then, we'd like to talk about the tackle, poles, reels, and let's start with salmon. So when people come in, or maybe they'll call you on the phone and say, hey, we're going to be coming into Charleston to do some fishing, and we're going to do salmon fishing. Mm-hmm. So, what do we need for poles, reels, and tackle?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the first thing I try to do is I want to try to gauge their level of experience, I guess. Where are they going to go with this? How serious are we? Just here, we're going to fish a few weekends a season and call it good, or I'm going to go hard over and I want the best equipment. I'm going to be doing this forever. So you got to kind of gauge that. So then we're going to gauge different price levels and quality and that sort of thing. So those are some of the questions I think that I'll be asking is just how serious are you? What do you want out of it? How much are you going to do it? Are you a person that likes good quality, or you're just content with, mediocre gear? So we and we try to keep, all levels of, tackle here. But
well, let's look at some. So if Julie and I were coming in and we say, hey, we want to start salmon fishing. And what would you want to sell to us?
So without getting too crazy, this is an 8-foot 2-piece. It's a Pescaro. We still call it a medium weight. It's a composite rod. So and a price point around $44.95, which is pretty reasonable. Awesome, but the thing we like about this is, number one, it's a longer 8-foot rod. It works really well for downrigger fishing. So we can load this thing up and fish it on a downrigger. I can put a diver on it, that's going to pull it over pretty heavy and fish it all day like that. I could take it up the river and I could fish sturgeon with it. We've actually had people even catch albacore with them. So they're tough. They break down. They're 2-piece.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is a medium. You said it's a...
Yeah, it's a medium action, 15 to 40 pound line. People usually abuse that and still put the 60 and 80 pound braid on it. So we've got other people that maybe they don't want an 8-foot rod. Not everybody wants that, so we can come down in here. This is actually a 7-foot, but it's a solid fiberglass rod. So it's going to do the salmon thing. It won't do the downrigger as well. but it can, now we're going to go over into bottom fishing. We can do some bottom fishing with this and maybe kind of blend it over into other fisheries too.
Okay.
You know?
Lingcod or yeah, any kind of bottom fish. Okay.
Exactly.
Cool.
Then of course we've got one more here. This is a one-piece. This is actually one of our latest rods, and this is a 7-foot, and we still call this a medium, but it's a pretty heavy rod as far as you know, comparing it maybe to that first 8-footer. Yeah. We call it off our Charter series. It has the plastic handle on it. It's got a little more robust reel seat on it. Okay, and so this is something that maybe again wouldn't work real well for the downrigger. Yeah. But would do a great job on a diver, or even, and it would blend into other fisheries like albacore. Oh, okay. Yeah, and so this would be something you could use as maybe an entry-level albacore rod, without, again, at that same you know, $44.95 price point.
Yeah, that's
great
nice.
quality.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
So from there, we could, you know, you're going to come down into the 8.5 foot in the ugly sticks. These rods are they're proven. They're going to be longer. Okay. They're probably not going to make great downrigger rods, but these will be good rods for towing divers and things like that. But when you get into the river on the inside, to make a really good you know, inside rod where we're fishing a little lighter equipment and we're not dependent on the downrigger.
Controlling the weight and the herring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Okay.
And your price point is up around $70 on those.
Okay.
And then from there we would go around the corner in the Calcutta series rods, where you'll just bring the price level up and the quality for people that just want a little more out of their gear. We can do that.
Let's walk over those, yeah.
Can I just hit this on?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, just leave it.
You can do a lot of editing.
Yeah. You know, it looks like we're kind of going through the rods for different kinds of fish right now. Anyway.
Okay.
So we'll does that sound all right? Because we're kind of talking about.
Sure. And then you could just call this.
We'll just call this the rods, and then
perfect.
And then we'll do that. We'll be done with the rods then.
All right. Then I think what we could do is once we covered this, we definitely want to hit this series for the albacore and halibut would be, and we could kind of yeah.
Okay.
Can't get as good a view.
I'll come here. Yeah. Okay. So just go ahead.
Do you want me to go here?
No, I'll kind of back out of the way. You
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and talk about it. And,
okay, so we're going to move up the ladder a little bit on our price point. The Convergent Series is actually where the old Claris price point used to be in quality. It's a great rod, and they come in everything from, you know, your 8-foot one piece all the way up to the 2-piece 9-foot and even 9.5 foot if you want to do some river fishing.
Okay.
Then as we move up, we've got the actual Claris line, and then we're up into the $99 rods up to the $129, and that's depending on the length and the action and that sort of thing. And these are really popular rods for our probably more our in-river salmon fishery, where guys are starting to use heavier leads, you know, 8, 10, and even 12 ounce, and those things will handle that all day.
Okay. So would that be considered, would guides use a rod like that in their boats?
Actually, matter of fact, our local Rick Howard is he's a Shimano pro staffer, and he pushes the Claris rods for us, and
Awesome. Cool.
So we can move over.
All right, over here now. Okay.
I could do. You wanna?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so albacore, halibut, we cover those two fisheries. The Travala series, it's been a very popular series for a long time. For a lightweight rod, you get a lot out of it. the type of construction it is. It's super lightweight, but it's super strong, super tough. For example, this is a 7-foot. They call it a medium light. It's got a 20 to 50 pound rating, and then from there they'll go to a 30 to 80, and then a 50 to 100. Okay, and those series will cover albacore. I mean, this is something that most people would liken to a spinning rod for trout or something, because it's so light. And so that's where the industry's been going, is smaller, lighter, faster, you know. So
Yeah, you could bring in big fish with that though, huh?
yeah, and then we bump up into the heavier stuff. Okay, and then so we're 5'8" here with an 80 to 200 pound braided line rating. So these are, you know, back in the day when we thought we had to have roller tip rods for halibut and even bottom fish, these things have kind of taken that place, and that's kind of where we're seeing everything go. The reels are getting stronger and smaller, and you know, so are the rods.
Wow, heavy. Just to make it So what was the purpose of the roller tips?
Well, I think it allowed the line, I think, you know, being on a just like a pulley, I guess, on a block, you know, it would, you know, of course we were using a lot larger lines then too. In those days we were using Dacrons and, you know, things that were much bigger. So I think when the braided lines first came out, there was a real difficulty with most roller guides because the smallness of the new braided lines would get caught in between the shivs, and so.
Good.
So that would cover rods, I think, for the most part.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk about reels then.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now we're over in the reel area. So Mark, why don't you go through some of the reels here with us?
Okay. So one thing, you know, we talked about a little bit on the rods. We have, you know, we have materials now that are, you know, lighter and stronger, and of course with the braided lines. And so people are really we're seeing our customers really wanting more quality. You know, the days of a inexpensive reel, I just want something to, you know, so the key now is you buy a good reel, because you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a good rod. So the Shimano series I'll talk about a little bit here. The Dakota series, I'm a huge fan of these reels because they cross over into so many different fisheries. The 500, this happens to be a Dakota 600. Okay, so we can fish this out here for salmon. We can fish it for bottom fish. We can bring it inside. We can fish it for sturgeon. We can troll for salmon in the estuary. Okay, level wind, very smooth, and of course the typical Shimano drags, which are just absolutely flawless. The line counters, so you have the same Dakota reel with a line counter. Line counters are becoming more and more popular. They're more dependable. Shimano's line counter, I think, is probably one of the better line counters out there. So if you're fishing in the bay and you want all your rods to be fishing at the same depth, this is a way to achieve that.
That's great.
So price points here are about $175 to $190, depending on the size and whether you get a line counter. Okay. So we get into the Torium series. So this is moving into something that could be used for bottom fishing or even salmon if you want. But typically this reel ends up in our albacore fishery, where it's got a heavy drag, it's got high speed, 6.2 to 1 ratio, and you've got something that's small that we could couple with a Travala rod, and then we've got something that's lightweight, but you know, plenty heavy enough to land, you know, albacore and that sort of thing. Those are popular. And then we kind of move into what I call kind of a blend, where, you know, typical albacore reels don't normally have a level wind on them. These particular reels, these are the Daiwas. This is part of the Lexus series. These have a tremendously strong drag in them. And these are actually reels that can be used for even live bait fishing for albacore, where you have something extremely light and you're trying to pitch it or flip it or cast a short distance. So low profile reels are actually kind of a nice
But it has level
reel to
line,
have.
though.
This does have a level
So
line.
would an albacore burn that up, you think?
Oh, eventually.
Yeah. Eventually.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
if you're out catching them.
So while we're on the albacore,
So is albacore becoming more and more popular here?
absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably one of the fastest growing fisheries here.
It has
Right.
been, and I think you could even talk to the boat dealers, and
Right.
you're seeing a big change in people's. I used to get a boat that would take me out here, and I could salmon fish with it and do a lot of things. But now we're moving up to bigger boats that'll take them farther offshore, and and it's been good for business, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So the Yvette series. So this is something that again we're seeing a huge demand where people are finally seeing the value in buying a good reel.
Quality
Okay,
reel.
so this is like I try to parallel this to a nice high quality hunting rifle, something you hand down to your grandkids, or this is that type of reel that you're going to have forever. Pass it on.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So these are one of the few USA made reels that are left.
That's
Okay. No level wines, so these are kind of what we call a pelagic reel, or something that you're going to be fishing for a line burner. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So that being said, even a little tiny reel like this, you can, you still have a lot of capacity on here for braided line.
Yeah.
You could take it down to Mexico and, catch marlin with it.
Wow.
No problem.
Doesn't look
So-
like a reel you use with it.
You wouldn't think so,
No.
but, these happen to be a 2-speed.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, so when you do get the big fish on, you can switch gears and you have all the power in the world.
Wow.
So the price point on these in a single speed, you start out about $200, and then you're going to go all the way up to about $370 to $400 getting into the 2-speed stuff. So, and you can buy these in, different, you got lots of different capacities, different sizes. Probably one of the greatest additions that they've made recently is something called Magic Cast. So what you have is very similar than what you have on the traditional level lines here, kind of an anti-backlash device. So, we have a lot of, again, we talked about the live bait on the albacore.
Yeah.
That's something that you can use, to sling anchovies and stuff to,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So.
Cool. That's-
And of course, reels like this cross over into our halibut fishery. So now, where we used to have 6/0, 9/0 pins, so they had enough capacity.
Yeah.
Now we've got something like this, or actually even, you could get down into this series and still fish halibut with it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So no level line, so on any of these?
No, yeah, because they're considered, offshore reel, pelagic reels. Yeah.
But they still will lay the line back on there evenly, and
Well, I think you're going to have to pay more attention. Typically.
you're coming in.
Yeah, and if you're not an experienced fisherman, that tends to be there's a little learning curve with that, but after you've used one for a while, it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So if you could have any of these as your personal reels, what would you have?
Well, basically, what I'm going to fish inside with is this.
Okay.
I love to take these things. I like to fish bottom fish, but it's
line counter, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But as soon as I turn and go offshore, I want that. Yeah, I mean, the reason I say that is I'm confident that if you caught that one in a lifetime fish offshore,
all of a sudden
you got the best chance with something like that.
And that's when your gear is going to fail. is when
Yeah.
You get that one.
You know the drill.
Those chances, What about line then? What line?
Well,
line
that's
would you use?
great. We could segue right into that. So typically we've been seeing the Powerpro has kind of been a staple for a long time, and this line is proven. Most any braided line is as long as it's either Spectra or Dyneema, whichever verbiage they're using, they're all good lines. Yeah. Everybody has a little bit different tweak to them. Powerpro kind of took the market and has been probably the more popular line. We've been bringing in this is a new 8 braid line. It's made by Climax. It comes out of Germany, and so what we're seeing, just like everything else in the industry, things are getting smaller.
Yes.
So now we have even a smaller braid. This is an 85-pound braid with a 0.40 millimeter. And if we compare that to some of the, for example, our 80-pound Powerpro was a what is it? It's a 0.43 millimeter. So we've got something that's even smaller than the old 80, but it's 85, and yeah. So, and what they've done is it's in the braiding process, where if you want to feel that.
Yeah. So this would be pretty invisible in the water too, wouldn't it?
Yes. And then compare it to the Powerpro. That feels like a saw blade compared to.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, and that's amazing.
That is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow, that is nice. Boy, it does. It is a big difference.
Yeah.
Huh, yeah. Oh, that's... So what do you sell most of?
Braided line.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably, it's got to be 10 to 1.
Yeah.
We fill reels with braid over mono. But we still have, use for mono. There's still, it's not going to go away.
Right.
But, that's just where we're at. And then, of course, here's our old standby. This is the old braided Dacron. So this is this is where we started, with our, fishing for halibut. And then, of course, we had to get a big enough reel so we could get enough line that we could get out there and get there. So, it's kind of amazing where we've come. So if you were to compare, here's today's 55-pound compared to, the old 50-pound Dacron. I mean, it's less than a third the diameter.
It is
so
a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
So albacore, what line would a guy use for?
We see a lot of 80 for a main line.
Yeah.
And then, of course, most are putting probably 100 foot of a monofilament top shot.
To get some stretch.
Yeah, you do need to have a little stretch, and also you want to have something that's not quite as visible,
right?
In that clear water when you're fishing offshore.
Right.
So
cool. Okay. Anything else online?
No, I think that would cover the.
Okay. Awesome.
Alrighty. Well, thank you very much, Mark, for that great information, and that concludes our video. Part 1 with Mark Fleck at Englund Marine in Charleston, Oregon. Stay tuned for other parts of this tackle tour series that Mark is presenting for us. I want to thank you for tuning in, and if you head over to our website at fishingoregoncoast.com, we'll have a resource page in our show notes listing more information about the items that Mark talked about in this video. Again, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you being here. Until next time, over and out.